Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I'm your host, Edgar Mills. Hello, America, and welcome to episode 5 of the Junto Podcast. So on this episode, there's going to be a number of topics. There's a lot of things I've been pondering lately based on conversations with friends, social media stuff, and a great number of my friends have hit me up on my opinion of Trump's plan to use U.S. SOF, U.S. Special Operations Forces, in combating the Mexican cartels and the drug influx, and not just drug influx, but human trafficking and all the things that the cartels do. And I wrote a paper on that and posted it up on the website, thejuntopodcast.com, and I thought it was pretty damn succinct. However, I'm going to break down just smaller pros and cons on that and see what you guys think about it. Tactically speaking, I absolutely believe U.S. SOF could go down and just kill a great many cartel members and even the leadership and make a significant dent. But there is so much more to it than tactical level stuff. There's so many, the authorities and the buy-in from the Mexican government and all those things. I don't think that we would ever have the conditions set for us to be victorious in that long term. I mean, hell, we've been in the war on drugs since, I want to say, Ronald Reagan, and it's been a colossal, epic failure. So what's different now? Well, yeah, Donald Trump is essentially big dick in everyone in the world, which is just, whatever, that's America, right? But we have to have the conditions and the long-term conditions to make that successful. And that's, in my opinion, one of the problems that America has as a country is we simply do not play the long game, not in the way that especially Eastern countries do, but we just don't have it in us to play the long game. Everything is short-term gratification. And you can't, in a long war, we spent 20 years refighting the same war every 6 months, every time a new group would rotate in or a new task force or whatever. So, yeah, ultimately, I think it's a lose. What are some short-term benefits? Yeah, we would disrupt. We would put a significant dent in their operations in the way that they're doing things. But if history tells us anything, bad guys are adaptable, and so they would figure a way around. And because we don't have the long game, they would just figure a different way around that we would be bound by some obscure legal processes or whatnot. Short term, yeah, we would disrupt their operations. We have the expertise and the ability and the equipment and to do all those things efficiently. I believe we could probably, if the gloves were completely off right now, we could probably go drone and take out every head cartel member right now. If the gloves were off completely, which they'll never be. And then what's another pro of us going head to head with SOF and cartel? Yeah, it would send a signal to the world that we're deadly serious about protecting borders and those sorts of things. And it might suppress cartel activity for even several years. But that's it. It would just suppress. I don't think it would ever end it. Should we go into this haphazardly? Now, understand this, folks. I'm not a strategic mind. I said this in my paper. My strength lies within my ability to operate at the tactical and operational levels, leadership, make things happen, to get a small group of men, anywhere from 4 up to 200 men, to go do things that need to be done in an efficient way. That's not strategy, folks. That's operational. That's tactical level stuff. So this is purely opinion. But should we get into that fight, assuming that it's going to be a short-term fight? Well, what do we have to deal with? Well, once again, we have to get all 100% buy-in from Mexico. And if we do not, there's going to be a big problem there. Sovereignty issues, international treaty issues, just all sorts of things that will create a strain in the Western Hemisphere altogether. And then I wrote of a very detailed, gruesome incident that nobody in America wants to see. That's a very real risk, folks, is the retaliation and innocent people just being brutally murdered by cartel. They have no such rules as we have. No such. Even with our gloves off, they are so much more gruesome than we could ever imagine. So imagine that coming to our doorstep, to our soil. Never mind the border states, Texas and then Arizona and down around that way. Inland America, right? You don't want cartel members murdering your children just as a show of retaliation. And that's a very, very real thing. Very real possibility. And then resources, folks. I'm a bitter, jaded libertarian, and I spent about 4.5 years in combat zones of the 20 years that America was in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the very first rotation I did as an 82nd Airborne Infantryman was about 11 months. And it was what I imagined war would be. Yep. It was crazy. And I was in the eastern border country over there, a place called Shkin. At any rate, it was what I imagined war would be. And I believed we were over there doing just things. That was in 2003. Well, after much examination, and I want you to think about this for a minute, we essentially, between the CIA and the 5th Special Forces Group, the war was won before 2003. The Taliban had been decimated, and all we had to do was hand over and support, but to the current leaders there. Well, who were the current leaders? Oh, they were warlords. That word is thrown around in a very derogatory way. They were regional strongmen, especially the Northern Alliance, Dostum and Adenauer. And we couldn't do that. We had to usher in some democracy and give her and all that shit. So what really, I think, because again, I'm jaded, is that once the regular conventional forces get involved, every commander wants a combat command. Once Bagram was built, you can't have an airfield without airmen who have, air conditioners and a PX to go to and a Cinnabon and a Burger King. You can't have it. Those people need to be living well so that they can fix aircraft so that the warfighters can get on those aircraft and go do things. Allegedly. By the way, you could buy a Harley Davidson tax-free while you were deployed. So once the conventional forces get involved, not that you don't need them. Look, there's different types of war and there's different types of warfare. But my point is that the focus was lost at that time. Now, again, I was there in 2003, almost all of 2003, and it was the Wild West. There was still stuff going on, and there were still pockets of bad guys. Mostly they were coming from Pakistan, from what I saw, because I was in the East. But my point is, essentially, Afghanistan was won in late 2002. So what I'm going here with this is the pros and cons against the Mexican cartels. Resources. Folks, how many billions was spent in Afghanistan and Iraq? How many billions? Do we want to get into that again? Do we think there's the chance that that's what it would become? Oh, no. Everybody will say, no, we're not going to let that happen. But people were comparing Afghanistan to Vietnam in like 2007 or 8 or whatever. And up until that point, Vietnam was our longest war, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, it not only became like it in certain aspects, but exceeded it by far. I happen to believe that our U.S. military forces should secure our borders. I think that's right. However, picking a fight with your southern neighbor because of the crime coming out of their country, that's not addressing, real root causes. Now, we may compel Mexico to act more harshly against their cartels, but I think we'll find out in reality. I've never been to Seventh Group. The realities down there, I believe, are that the cartels probably own more of the government than we imagine. So the resources that we would have to put into that would be enormous. And that's just Mexico, folks. Never mind Colombia and all the drugs going on in South America. They all touch each other. It's not like an isolated Mexican cartel, one and done, boom, America's drug free. And never mind drugs coming from China and elsewhere. So that's a big bite. It sounds cool. And everybody says, oh, what do you think? Special operations can beat cartel? Yeah, toe to toe, of course. Absolutely. 100%. I don't care how brutal they are. I'm old and slow, and I would put my tactical skill against any cartel guy. I know men who just will not be beat in a tactical situation. It is just the way it is. America's highly trained special operators. We would defeat in a tactical game. We would defeat anybody. That being said, I think it's probably a bad call. It's on the table. And it should be on the table. The president has a lot of tools and a lot of different weapons in the arsenal, and he should be able to call on those as needed. I just hope that the strategy backs up the tactical plan. Again, I'm a bit of a libertarian. No, I'm a full-blown libertarian, and I'm a bit cynical. At any rate, that's my thoughts on it, kind of in a nutshell. That was 14 minutes, 15 seconds of my thoughts on the cartel and special operations. So, the next topic I want to talk about is the DOGE, the hatchet, the killing machine DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Now, I like it. You can poo-poo me on programs, my grandpa don't get his medicine, whatever. I think the vast majority of the government needs to be cut, and I think they're doing it. I don't think it's being done willy-nilly. I think it seems that way because everything Trump does seems willy-nilly just because of the personality and the caricature that he presents. I think Elon Musk is probably much more thoughtful than he's given credit for, and probably way smarter than he's given credit for. So, why is it good? Look, they've already uncovered literal billions of dollars of waste, fraud, waste, and abuse. That's literal fraud, waste, and abuse. Money that is just being pocketed by politicians and lobbyists. So, cutting off the lifeline to these friggin' leech politicians, these bureaucrats, is only going to help us in the long term. If you're one of those among us who feels that we need the U.S. bureaucracy to help us live in a orderly and safe life, you're wrong. That is all. Streamlining the government. If we can get rid of all the, and look, there are people that say DOGE is unconstitutional. Well, what about the EPA? Where in the Constitution does the EPA or the Consumer Protection Agency, or name an agency, and try to find it in the Constitution? Well, precedent and executive order, blah, 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 under President so-and-so. Well, DOGE is an executive order just like everything else has been an executive order. It gets codified into some kind of law, maybe, whatever, but I don't think it will. I don't think it needs to be. It's a short-term hatchet to come and cut the fat, get the government down to a manageable, accountable size, and then continue on. Streamlining the government, I think, is critical. Government operations. The government has its fingers in everything. It just doesn't need to. If you think it does, again, you're wrong. Essential functions of the government, folks. What is the number one essential function of the U.S. government? To defend our rights. That is it. To defend our rights and to protect our borders and to make regular commerce. Yep. And also, it says it right in the Constitution, to make regular naturalization and immigration. That's Congress's job. They haven't done that since I've been. Opening the gates doesn't make it regular. All right, that's not naturalization and citizenship. That's just opening the gates. Now, I am a libertarian, but I don't believe in just wide open borders either. I've had this discussion before. But the fact that our electoral votes and our number of representatives are dependent on how many citizens are physically living in America, the fact that we have millions and millions, tens of millions of undocumented citizens puts an unfair balance or unfair imbalance in that number. And if you want to argue about the Electoral College, we can do that in another time. Accountability. These numbers, this money has to be accounted for. When we say 50 trillion, I really can't conceptualize that. That's such a huge number that I can't really conceptualize it. It's just insane. It's a big number. It's so difficult to like put pictures to that. You know, how many aircraft carriers is that, or how many cities? I mean, can I take $50 trillion and go build Atlanta all over again? Probably multiple times over again. And this is money that's just out there doing nothing but padding pockets. Padding pockets of not just our leech bureaucrat politicians, but leech bureaucrat politicians all over the world. Accountability. That's what's up. That's what we need. We need accountability. So what's the downside to DOGE? What's the downside? I see none. Nah, that's not true. I'm a critical thinker a little bit. I see some. However, one that you're going to hear crying about a lot is gaps in like the services, right? Gaps in the entitlement programs. Well, when you look at some of those programs and determine whether they're constitutional or not, you got to wonder, like, well, is that a con? Is that there's something wrong with that? That program shouldn't have existed anyway. What about the poor, Edgar? You just want to let poor people die? No, I don't want to just let poor people die. I don't think it's the government's job to keep every human on life support, though. I don't think healthcare, education. And these are the three big ones, and these are the things we've heard about over the past, several months. Healthcare, education, and then what's been one of the most recent, disaster relief. I think the federal government has dropped the ball in an epic fashion on disaster relief. So why do I need FEMA to suck up millions of dollars and then go just bungle an operation in North Carolina, for instance, or California. Now, I tend to write California off. I love Californians. I think California could be the greatest state in the union. And at one point, it probably was the greatest state in the union. It's the topography, the geography, everything. They've got it all from skiing, rainforests, the redwood, all the way down to the Baja desert, surfing, Hollywood. I used to be so enamored with Hollywood and movies and all that stuff. It was awesome. And now it's just a gigantic piece of garbage. This still has all those things, but all those things are costing more and more money and being less and less taken care of. California. This isn't just a rant, folks. I'm trying to throw out some actual good points here. Hopefully it doesn't come off as just a rant. But services, education, Department of Education. What do you think? Do you think we need a federal Department of Education? What if we don't standardize education across the nation? Then what? Is education standardized across the nation right now, even with a federal department? Was it Philadelphia or Baltimore? One of those major cities over there on the east had something like 0 passing scores in reading and writing and arithmetic, the 3 R's. So ever since Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education, the statistics don't lie. And it's not about lying with statistics, folks. Yeah, you can manipulate numbers, but all the metrics of success in education since the creation of the Department of Education have tanked. Steady decline, and still declining, by the way. It's time for alternatives. Yes, private schools, but I don't just mean bougie-ass rich people private schools. I mean homeschool collectives, Montessori schools, the alternatives. I don't need the federal government sending the law out to make sure my kids aren't truant. All right, that's not what needs to be happening. What needs to be happening is our kids need to be learning in an environment, one, that is conducive to their learning abilities and learning style. We all remember elementary school and middle school. Man, I barely graduated high school with pre-algebra. I don't even know how I graduated. I didn't get math. I didn't get it. I still don't get it, for that matter. Anybody who's worked with me knows that. I didn't learn math. Am I just a dummy? Maybe. What if I'd have been in a different environment? What if I'd have been in a different learning environment? I don't know. Creativity does not get fostered in the current systems. The current system herds your kids into school, you react to the bell, and then you get up and move from class to class on the bell. The teachers, look, I'm not bemoaning all the teachers. Some people have a genuine love for children and want to educate them the best they can. But even good teachers still complain about what they are and aren't allowed to do based on some bizarro ideology, whatever district you're in. If you're in an extremely conservative district, I can't read this or I can't read that. If you're in an extremely liberal district, now you got friggin' bizarre reading material. It's pornographic and whatnot. Make schools more community-based. Make schools more community-based. And if the federal government wants to be involved in that, if the Department of Education must exist, then let it exist only to dish out money. But even then, the government don't work that way. The government's like a mafia. If they give you money, you are beholden. That money comes with conditions. Now, that money comes with conditions when it's to American states, right? When it's to foreign countries, it comes with 0 conditions. Well, there's some backroom conditions, but we don't see what the real money goes to. All right, I'm ranting again. Department of Education. Yeah, I think it needs to go away. I think FEMA. I've never been a Trump fan, but over several of the past 15 years, I've had sort of a running list of what would President Mills do if I got in office. What would be some of the first things that I did? Well, before Trump ever came along, one of my very first things was to cut foreign aid. Yeah, all foreign aid. That's to include Israel. All right, that's to include any country that's getting a dime of U.S. money. And then I would start taking phone calls country by country. And then based on what their need was and based on their sales pitch on what we would get for that money, because it's not about giving them money and just watching them. We give money to South America. Honduras gets, I don't know, a couple million, few million a year. What do they do with it? Where does it go? There's no accountability. There's no tracking it. We still get Honduran immigrants coming across illegally. So what's going on? I just saw a thing today. I think we were spending $50 million to do circumcisions in Mozambique. Does that scan? Is that critical? Do we need to be clipping dick skin of little Mozambique children? I don't know, man. What are we selling that as? Is that a health issue? Making sure they're clean and whatnot? I'd like to see the books on that. I'd like to see the financials on that. So yeah, I would cut foreign aid. Trump seems to be working on that. I don't know if the world would come to a screeching halt if you just cut the spigot completely. Maybe not. I would cut the spigot completely. Now you may say, "Oh, Edgar, that's short-sighted. You're just trying to get wins for your base." No. It's not about any base. It's about stopping all outgoing money until we figure out where everything's going. Sorry, folks. Had a technical difficulty there. My engineer, who happens to also be named Edgar Mills, he's marginally trained. At any rate, where'd I leave off? Cutting the Department of Education. No. Cutting foreign aid. Yeah. Cutting foreign aid. Everybody. What are you going to give me for what we're giving you? There needs to be a trade-off. It doesn't need to be free money. Parents, how often do you just give your children free money? Business owners, how often do you just give your employees free money? Probably none. So why would you give anyone else free money? All right, where was we at? Foreign aid. Oh, the list of things that President Mills would do. Yeah, I would cut foreign aid. Also, I would abolish the income tax. And I know people think, "Oh, you can't do it." Bull crap, you can do it. All right, it exists. It happened. It didn't just happen. The income tax didn't always exist. It was meant to be temporary from the get-go and was just taken advantage of. So, damn, I'm sorry. Technical issues here. All right. Income tax could go away. I think that would change the face of politics. I think if you flatten the tax, however you want to do it, get rid of it completely. If even just a base tax, even just taxes on goods, folks, there shouldn't be an income tax. You shouldn't get taxed for working. So, people complain, why don't rich people pay their fair share? Well, if you look at who pays taxes, you'll see that rich people pay somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of all taxes. Well, what about the rich people who get away? What about Elon Musk hasn't paid tax and whatever? Hey, if the loophole exists, they're going to use it. And guess what? If you knew where that loophole was, you would use it. If you make under a certain amount of money and you have a bunch of kids, you get a child tax credit. What about people who don't have children? Is that unfair to them? Do they think, "Well, go, you're using the child tax credit to get more money back"? Well, yeah, that's right. So if you get rid of all this stuff, all this convoluted bull crap, and get rid of all the stuff that the government is using to pick winners and losers or to choose who gets what when based on, I don't know what, being a good citizen, I guess. If you get rid of all the stuff, then it won't be there to be abused. Folks, I'm having all sorts of technical issues. Please bear with me. I do apologize. I will get more proficient as time goes. All right. Income tax, loopholes, get rid of it. So where was that? Cut foreign aid. President Mills, cut foreign aid. Get rid of income tax altogether. Term limits. Now, a lot of people tend to agree with term limits. One of my favorite people out there is Ron Paul. And I listened to Ron Paul argue against that. And he's exponentially more educated, more intellectual, more experienced, all those things than I am. But that's the one thing I disagree. I think term limits are critical. The way you amass power, I believe, in any criminal organization, is that you hang around long enough that you get secrets and favors in your pocket. And the longer you're around, the more secrets you amass and the more favors you amass. And 30, 40 years into it, you are now a mighty powerful person with a whole bunch of secrets and favors stacked up. That's how corruption works. Dirty pictures in a box. I got them. I got dirty pictures of you with a 12-year-old boy. That's how corruption works. So if we cut the term limits down, look, I'm talking about 6 years max. I mean, the term itself and then term limit. Then what does the president get? 2 terms? Then a congressman should get 2 terms. Well, you need to have people you need to have continuity, right? And then the president just kind of comes and goes figurehead. Yeah, that's kind of true, I think, but it needs to be true with the representatives as well. I don't believe our founders intended for politics to become a profession, a career. I believe that they intended for it to be a short-term thing, but then again, they left it open so that there were no limits. So were they flawed? I don't know. I think that was a flaw for sure. The longer you're there, the more that you can amass the secrets and the favors. And I'm completely against that. So foreign aid, cut income tax, term limits. And then there's other little small things. Campaign finance reform. I don't think the government should be, for instance, I don't think the government should fund NPR and PBS, but they do. So check it out. That means that is government operated programming. However you want to say, you can think that they are unbiased or whatever, but they are not. And therefore it is government ordained programming. Well, all the campaign dollars that get spent on commercials and airtime and all these things, that needs to be out. That needs to be out the door right now. There's no way a network should charge however many millions of dollars for a 5-minute spot or whatever. All campaigning can be done via PBS and NPR, if you want to ask old Edgar. And then guess what? Everybody gets equal time. Yep. I don't care how many candidates are running. Everyone gets equal time. So there you go, right there. That takes out money. Well, we got to travel around the country to campaign. Well, then do that. That I don't believe that is necessary in today's world. It's just not. That's where you can go glad hand people and make backroom deals for sure. But I don't think it's necessary in today's world. Anyway, several other little things that we could go into, but I'm not going to go into it. The gist, I believe, with DOGE, I believe if we could cut the IRS or a minimum cut income tax, cut foreign aid, and I mean the mass of it, I would say all of it, but that's not going to happen. And then if we could find some term limits, then I think we would change the face of politics forever. So the cons, that's what I was talking about. The cons of DOGE, and then I went into the pros, like, well, we got to do to make it good. Service gaps, right? People think, oh, I'm not going to get my check. I'm not going to get my check. I'm not going to get my stamps. I'm not going to get this. I'm not going to get my EBT. That needs to be state level stuff anyway. The federal government doesn't need to be in the welfare business, period. The federal government can't make decisions for 360, 370 million people. The states need to be making those decisions. All right. Oh, the government job losses. That's what's next. Everybody's moaning and groaning about the government job losses. Now, I thought Trump posed a pretty good severance package there for any government employee that wanted to take 8 months of salary and whatever. The job losses. Get the F out of here. There's too many government jobs, period. You can't tell me. Now, you go to the DMV, right? The local DMV, and it's a madhouse. Well, we're understaffed. That's their universal answer, is we're understaffed. But you look at the way they do business. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I live in Rome, Georgia, and our tag office is an absolute delight. The ladies are always there. There may be one desk empty out of the, I think, 5 desks that are there. They're an absolute delight, and they'll get you in, get you out. There's no trying to herd you around to the next one, or, oh, you don't have this piece of paper, that one. They'll work with you. I've never had to wait more than a couple minutes to go do tags. Now, I'm gonna do the opposite of that. Colorado Springs, Department of Motor Vehicle down by the airport. Oh my God. It's an absolute madhouse. Absolute madhouse. They've got employees. They've got plenty. But if you don't have the right piece of paper, they're not, and that's on you to have the right stuff. I get it, but man, they would just send you on, man. They even got like a bouncer at the door who checks your stuff and sends you back. At any rate, government jobs, you know what? And that's a state job anyway. What federal job do you need in the state of Georgia? Tell me, please. I mean, email me, text me. What federal job do you need in the state of Georgia? What do we need here? Now, I know we got some offices for feds like FBI, for instance. There's an FBI office, and we got federal prison here for sure down on Constitution Avenue, close to the Zestos and the Starlight Theater. I guess federal pen, yeah. If you're gonna have federal pen, you gotta have federal guys working that, I guess. What other federal jobs are we worried about? The IRS employees? Are we poopy because instead of hiring 80,000 new IRS agents to audit, they're now firing agents? Are we poopy about that? Go get another job. Go work in the civilian market. Now, that's big words coming from a guy who spent 25 years in the Army. But hey, signed a contract. They signed a contract. We did it. It was done. Yeah, job losses. I don't think that's legit. I think if you've got experience, if you've worked for federal government for 20 years and you get offered a good severance package, now I don't know what they're offering on retirement, like your long-term benefits, but let's back up and look at Congress for a minute and term limits. I think if you go and serve one term in Congress, you have your benefits for life. I'm pretty sure that's the case. If you go serve 25 years in the Army, you got health insurance for the rest of your life and your retirement, your wee little retirement compared to Congress. And then, yeah, if you got broke up some, you get your VA rating. So F that, jobs. Go get a job on the civilian market. Make more money, be happier, and negotiate your value. Become more valuable. That's the problem with government jobs, is you don't have to prove your worth. You just have to take up space. All right, job losses. Is that a con? Yeah, that's what most people will call a con. But again, I don't say so. And then I don't know. Are there any other unintended consequences from all this rapid cutting of business or agencies? I don't know. People will think they'll probably use something like regulations on food and like the environment, like Environmental Protection Agency. If that got drastically cut, now we go, oh my God, now the environment's going to go to hell because no government is there to regulate it. I point you to the Los Animas River. I want to say in maybe New Mexico. The government does more damage than it does good. I will stand by that stat. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The government does more damage than it does good. The government does more damage than it does good. That's it. And that's all. I mean, look, I don't want to get heavy into this vaccine mandate stuff, but all the facts are now coming out. All the evidence is now coming out that the shots were more harmful than helpful. That's just the way it is. The government did more damage than good. You can email me. We can argue it. All right. That was DOGE. So now I want to segue into, we talked about very specific government action, right? Special operations forces being used against the Mexican cartels. That's a very specific, very all government sort of thing. Then we talked about DOGE, about getting rid of government agencies and trimming the fat on government. So if we trim the fat on government, inevitably, the next thing I want to look at is the future of liberal arts in America. All of these universities who benefit from government largesse, who have these ridiculous tuitions that get backed by government money, I guess, or subsidized. And as we go on in the future here, so what about liberal arts? Yes, I think any college you go to, they'll talk about critical thinking, and we'll learn how to do critical thinking, and we'll learn the steps of how to take in all the information, all that. And that's a very college thing that's a very academic, intellectual thing to do. But the application of that critical thinking into the practical workforce is a whole nother thing that I think college misses. What else do you get in higher education? I took art appreciation. And not because it was just it wasn't easy. Well, it wasn't easy really, because there was a lot of art history involved as well. I happened to like art, and I thought it was a very interesting class. I needed an elective sort of course to fill out whatever program I was on, and I thought that was a good one. I loved it. I think we need things like that, but not at the cost of what we're paying for them right now. I think knowing history is very important. In the humanities, all these things are very important in a way. But practical application of these things, what's the future look like in the practical application? We're living in a modern, tech-heavy world, a modern and tech-heavy world where all this intellectual nonsense, it only flies, I don't know, really in politics, doesn't it? We're STEM dominated, right? Science, technology, electronics, mechanics, and things like that. That's what's going on in the job market in the future of just development, of societal development. That being said, look, creativity to me is it's critical. It's at the utmost importance. But if you're just going to school on these very soft liberal arts degrees, and you're not making yourself valuable in a skilled market, what good are you? It's going to go away. I mean, you can become an artist of some sort and try to sell your wares as a luxury. Meanwhile, you're eating ramen, and you got people who make money looking at your stuff, deciding whether or not it has value or not. So it's very important that we have the creativity. It's very important that we have critical thinking taught to us, how to solve problems, even big ideological problems, conceptual problems. But when it comes down to solving practical problems, can we do that? It's very important. I think the modern day college, I think the degrees don't really have any direct career path. unless you're doing law or medicine, is there a really direct career path? What are you going to do for a living? What is your job going to be? Are you just going to go off into some other field? Is college only good for showing an employer that we can stick to something for 4 years, that we have the discipline to get up and go to school every day? Well, does that require that much discipline? I mean, for some people it does, but also, for a good segment of the college students out there, you get up and you go hang out with friends, you party it up, you drink it up, and then you sit with your friends, do a little studying, go pass tests, so even then, the degree doesn't necessarily say much about what you do, depending on the type of degree it is, obviously. But like I said, I could barely do math, so I'm talking kind of loose here. But is there a real direct career path for you by getting one of these soft liberal arts degrees? Because we already know, and this has been the case for the past several years, is that there's folks out there with these very expensive college degrees that not only are not working in their field, but don't have a job. Now you're out door dashing and stuff like that to try to pay your bills. The cost benefit ratio there. Perfectly happy. If my daughter wants to go finish school at a local college, Georgia Highlands, I'm perfectly happy, especially if it's focused. If her degree is focused on a thing, whatever that thing is, and she has a clear, I want to go do this degree is going to help me with that. And it's at Georgia Highlands College. Drive on. It doesn't have to be University of Georgia or friggin' Harvard, right? Because the value, the more, now there's different kinds of value. If you're walking out of Harvard with a degree, you got the handshakes and the secret societies and all that. I'm talking about your average normal people, regular middle class folks. I think the cost benefit ratio is very, very cattywampus when it comes to higher education. Very cattywampus. It doesn't jack. Now, and on the other end of that coin, vocational training, the cost benefit ratio is very high. You can go spend a fraction of the dollars on a vocation, on a technical skill. Spend, 8 weeks, 16 weeks learning a technical skill, go get a ground level job, and in 3 years, you're making a solid living. So that's been a topic of conversation out there in recent years, and then it just kind of faded away because there's so many other big things to be talking about. And I don't know what the current numbers are as far as enrollment numbers in these big institutions. I'm not 100% sure if they're on. I think they're kind of on the decline, but there are pros and cons. I think the future of liberal arts is kind of shaky, and I think some of these higher education institutions maybe need to come a little bit off of the politics and start focusing a little bit more on practical application of the things that they're teaching, and kind of get back in the game of making people truly prepared for the workforce or entrepreneurship, but truly preparing people for the workforce, not indoctrination of some political ideology and whatever else. So the future of liberal arts, I think that I know it seems loose, right? But I think that ties in with the DOGE stuff, because if there's no money to cover all these subsidizing all these unpaid for college degrees, what's going to happen? Or are they going to drop off? Or are grants and scholarships going to drop off? They're going to have to revalue them, right? They're going to have to evaluate the degrees differently. College tuition, I think, eventually is going to have to change, because it seems like it's reached a kind of a peak. Like, Jesus, can it get any higher? And who can afford it if it does? So, whatever about Harvard and Princeton. Like, if you can't afford to go to Kennesaw State University, I mean, god dang, what are we saying about our nation? We only want the elite ruling class children to go to school, and everybody else just whatever. So think about those things. I think that ties in with the future of the government here, with the cutting departments and whatnot. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying higher education needs to be reevaluated, and the government needs to be taken away from that equation, and the true value of a degree is what we need to be paying for when we send our children to school. All right, final topic, folks. Final topic in this setting here. You guys know I'm a firearms instructor, and I train leadership and teamwork development and those types of things. A lot of people ask me, there's people who have moved to Georgia recently who've come to train and expecting to get a certificate for concealed carry so that they can go then apply for a concealed carry permit. You don't need one in Georgia, folks. It's a constitutional carry state. That means the Constitution covers your right? It outlines and protects your right to carry a firearm. I don't think we're in any fear of losing that, at least anytime soon, especially if we can get rid of the ATF. All my homies hate the ATF. If we can get rid of ATF, sure, whatever. Individual liberty. First of all, I look through the individual liberty lens when I look at anything, no matter what the topic is. Constitutional carry jives with individual liberty. Constitutional carry is just a state or a federal acknowledgement that the Constitution protects our natural right to keep and bear arms against a tyrannical government. Now, 2 years ago, people were like, oh, no, you can't keep arms against the government. There are scores of left-wing, leftist organizations popping up who are defending the right to carry openly, carry without a permit, just the Second Amendment. Because now, whether rationally or irrationally, now that Donald Trump is in office, they believe that now we have a tyrannical government, and now that the tyrants are going to come after them, and that somehow they have a right to defend themselves against tyrannical government. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. That's exactly what the Second Amendment says. So welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Self-defense, yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? Everybody has a right to self-defense, unless you're in New York or California. Then they question it. But the Second Amendment specifically addresses your right to protect yourself against a tyrannical government. What's another pro of constitutional carry? I believe that an armed society is a polite society. If you're walking the streets of America, and potentially everyone walking those streets could be armed, I certainly believe a bad guy would be less apt to get squirrely, would be less apt. He would have to go take further, deeper measures on how to figure out who would be an easier target, because it would be an unknown. Right now, it's kind of a known. You can assume that somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of people walking the streets are not armed. Yeah, but I believe if more people carried, that would be a deterrence to crime if that were known. Not that anybody specifically knows you're carrying a gun. I also believe in concealed carry, not open carry. Not that they need to know you're carrying a gun. They need to assume everybody's carrying a gun. And we'll talk about that in a minute when it comes to law enforcement. So I believe that would create more polite society and ultimately a safer society. And it gets rid of silly laws for politicians to play with. Gun ownership is meant to be accessible. It's our right. It's our right, protected, not stated, protected by the Constitution. Now, what are the cons? Everybody, common sense gun laws more guns equal more death, blah, blah. Yes, there's a safety risk. Any adult who chooses to carry a firearm should get trained, period. It's a responsible thing to do. Carrying a killing machine implies that you're responsible. If you're irresponsible and you're a firebrand, crazy, wild guy, and you like to go around shoulder checking people and you're a tough guy, and you carry a gun and you think that's just going to add to your tough guy persona, you're going to F around and get shot, or you're going to F around and shoot someone by mistake. You have to be, and you're held at a slightly higher standard when it comes to law enforcement and the law. So yeah, it's a safety risk for just everyone and anyone to be carrying a gun, unless they behave responsibly. If everyone in the streets were carrying a gun, or it could be assumed, now we got a law enforcement issue. Law enforcement, too, in my opinion, is wildly undertrained. Now let's imagine you got a 23-year-old cop walking the streets, and he's stressed out because he thinks everybody's got a gun. And in some agencies, they literally teach them that everyone out there is the enemy and that everyone is suspect. Now, that's a very cynical way to look at citizens, but in the later issues here, we'll talk about law enforcement and community and that kind of thing. But yeah, one of the cons of everybody carrying is that it's hard for cops to now know who's legal and who ain't. Well, they automatically assume everyone's illegal when they should be automatically assuming everyone is legal until something else drives them to the other way. And then there's the public, right? The general public, the extreme left-wing Karen type out there who sees a bulge on your hip and loses it. I read something where a lady said, if I see someone carrying a gun, no questions asked, I'm going to pepper spray them and try to subdue them until a cop gets there. Well, that's a good way to get shot. That's assault. There's all people have irrational opinions when it comes to guns. But I think right now in the current environment, firearms constitutional carry is catching on. I want to say it's in 28 or 29 states right now and catching on. I think with some of these government agencies going away, and I think we're seeing sort of loosely organized protests going on from liberal people, Trump haters specifically, these loosely organized protests. And then we're seeing that the politicians, the representatives they're ramping up the rhetoric as far as how to dehumanize the other side, to dehumanize the Republican and the Trump thing. So Trump's a Nazi, Elon Musk is a Nazi. They're trying to take over the world. And it's all a ruse, whatever. So I think everyone should be carrying a gun just for their own personal safety for sure. I think you need to be responsible when you're carrying that gun. I think you need to use critical thinking when when thinking about other issues that are hot issues right now. If we talk about cutting the Department of Education, don't just jump on your political bandwagon and start spouting off talking points. How married to you are you to the Department of Education? How important? Look at the pros and cons. Look at the numbers. Has it done great things for you and your community or not? I don't know. Look at it critically and be honest with yourself. If you're a full-blown patriot, America, and you think that Donald Trump should deploy all of 7th Group and 5th Group and Delta and everybody down to the border and start doing cross-border operations. What's the limit or of your expertise? What do you think the potential fallout might be? I shared a little bit of my thoughts. Are you ready for that? Do you think that would affect you in Atlanta, Georgia? Do you think that there's probably some cartel who reside in Northeast Atlanta or in McDonough or in friggin' Douglasville? If you want to see some gruesome shit, that's where we start. We start doing these cross-border incursions. Look, it's not off the table. There's ways to do things. I'm just telling you, think about it. How bad do you want that to happen? Do you have kids in middle school and high school in Florida? Think about how bad you want that kind of thing to happen. Think about that. All right, folks. What's coming up? What do we got? February. We got a Liberty or Death match coming up. That's a 2-gun. It's a 1-day. That's coming up March. I want to say 23rd or so. And then 2 big things we got going on in April. April 5th, we have the OSS Challenge, OSS to Green Beret, 2-gun tactical 2-man team match. So you're going to be out there hustling with a homie. It's going to be good. We're supporting Special Forces Foundation for that, and it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a bit of a smoker. You don't have to be a friggin' professional level athlete to do it, but you're gonna get smoked. And then later on in April, we have what I'm calling the Special Mission Skirmish, purely for fun. It's going to be a good time, force on force, same objective. 2 teams are tasked to hit the same objective. You're going to have a planning period. I'm going to look at your plans and make sure that they're, reasonable. And then we're going to launch each team at the same time. And then you guys are going to do your thing. And then we're going to have some catered food for that. And it's going to be a little high tempo. It's going to be an opportunity for you to see that real tactics versus paintball style tactics are completely different. And you're getting, there's completely different things you must do. Because it's not just to go out and kill the other team, by the way. It's to go capture and exfil high-value individual. So there's a very specific mission there. It's going to be a good time. I'm very excited about it. I know I'm dragging on about it, but I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. It's the first time we're doing anything like this. And, yeah, I think it's just going to be cool as hell. So check out the website for that. So I got 3 different websites. I got OspreyShootingSolutions.com. That's where all the shooting stuff is. We have 2teamguys.com. That's the number 2. And that's where the Special Mission Skirmish and all of the adventure-based teamwork and leadership stuff is. Land navigation, search and rescue, mountaineer, and those types of things. And then we have the Junto Podcast.com, which is where you can find this podcast. And you can find all our blogs. And yeah, that's it. Just the podcast and the blogs. It's just for me to get my thoughts out there, to get people. I'm always looking for a potential guest. The last couple weeks ago, we had Kurt Fennell, who is my buddy. He's a pro shooter. And he's out here this year trying to hustle and just win all the tactical games. I'm going to be on a podcast pretty soon, the Danny Burnham here in Rome, the Burnham Project, I think it's called. So that's coming up pretty soon. So listen for that. That'll be up on the website as well. And I'm always interested to hear from you guys on various topics that you'd like to hear discussed, various arguments you may pose against anything that I say. I'm happy to answer those things. And so please do email me at Edgar Mills at OspreyShootingSolutions.com to share those things. And then finally, if you like to write, please do. If you have a well-written essay that you would like me to put on the website, I will do that. It's got to be well-written. And when we may edit it, not edit it for content, but edit it for, grammar and things like that, it needs to be semi-well-written. And obviously, you can use bad words, but let's keep it professional. And beyond that, yeah, I'm always interested to see what my listeners or my followers, what they're thinking about and what their deep thoughts are. So follow the Junto podcast on all whatever your favorite Spotify or Apple or all that. Please follow us. And please go to the website at thejuntopodcast.com and sign up, for the update on that, so you can get our stuff. I appreciate you guys. I thank you all for listening, and I appreciate the numbers that we're slowly pushing up on our podcasts. And again, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening.